Howdy, friends, and welcome to the StoryField. This is a podcast where we talk about business, faith, and life in general.
Okay, so here's the deal. We want you to be encouraged. We want you living in hope. This life we live is complex. It's hard at times. At the StoryField, you will find great stories of normal people just like us who will inspire you. Our goal is that you leave encouraged, inspired, and excited to move forward in life. But before we get started, one thing though, if you're listening and you find yourself really hopeless right now, send us an email at hope@thestoryfield.com so we can pray for you. Thanks for joining us today. Let's get started.
Hey, StoryField. Welcome, my friend AJ Chambers. Welcome to the show, man. And this is your first time. We just talked about it, right?
Yeah, this is number one. Thank you.
It's one of many, maybe, for you. Who knows where it's going to go. Well, I want to say this podcast is unofficially sponsored by Young Life, whether AJ likes it or not, and officially sponsored by particularly Young Life Club in Stephenville, Texas, which is why, AJ, you're here. So is that okay? Can I say that, AJ?
Sure.
It's unofficial, right?
Yeah,
So
free sponsorship. That's great.
okay. Yeah, it's the best. This is how we roll at the StoryField. Well, in all serious, AJ, man, I appreciate you making time. And just to introduce you a little bit, AJ is we became friends and been working over the past year and getting Young Life Club started here in Stephenville. And he's is involved in the leadership of the West Texas region. So a lot of times, AJ, we start, and I want to touch on your story too, because that's, the most important. But a lot of times we do a narrative, I want to know people's narrative and, that type of thing. So I want to do that for you up to a point, but also specifically, I really want to turn this into a little bit of a topical, just because I need my subject matter expert on Young Life to pick their brain, because we haven't had club here in town in a long, long time, and a lot of people have never heard of Young Life. They don't know what it is, they don't know what it does, and all that. And I really need you to speak on that as well. So, all that to say, but can you start us with tell us a little bit about your position, where you're located, and then let's get into your story, where you grew up a little bit and that type of thing, how you ended up where you're at. And then let's just start getting a little bit in the weeds, if that's okay. So
that's great.
So that was the longest introduction ever. I appreciate you bearing with that. So
yeah, here we go. So my role, I'm one of the associate regional directors for the West Texas region of Young Life, and I oversee areas around Fort Worth, and then have helped over the past year get Young Life going. Helped is I use that word very loosely. I just steered a little bit the Stephenville team as they've worked to get Young Life going there.
Well, you've blessed us a ton, man. You've helped us a ton. Don't backslide off of that. You've been a major part. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. So I've been in this role for 5 years. I've been on Young Life staff for just over 18 years, and either in Fort Worth or in Grapevine or in this role with the region. I live in Southwest Fort Worth,
Okay.
a little town called Benbrook. But
now, why do they call it the West Texas region if you're in Fort Worth and we're in Central Texas? Where does your region go to? Where does the region expand to? Because it's a pretty big one, isn't it?
Yeah, geographically, it's pretty big. So if you drew a line down the middle of the DFW Metroplex, it would most likely represent Highway 360. And that's the easternmost border. So
Okay.
Tarrant County is our easternmost county for our region, and then we go all the way out to Midland, Odessa, all the Panhandle, and kind of everything in between. Um, the lines between, what's Central Texas and what Central Texas is one of the 5 regions in Texas in Young Life. And so the line there between what's central and what's west gets a little blurry.
Mhm.
Some of that's whoever gets there first. But yeah, we've got, Denton County and
Mhm.
Wichita Falls,
Okay, yeah,
Lubbock,
so you're out there.
Amarillo, Abilene,
S-
Jim
So,
Ned, Tuscola.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to put you too much on the spot, but what's if you had to just make a pretty close estimate on how many clubs, and we're going to define that for people who may not know what a club is, how many, you know, areas do you have in that whole region if you were guessing pretty close?
Yeah, we probably have 20, 25 areas.
Okay.
Um, that would be my guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, my eyes are pretty limited on the 8 that I ever see. But
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
uh,
Yeah, so you
uh,
oversee eight of us. That's
yeah,
great. Yeah, so this is no small task. I mean, just as far as an organization, that's what I want people to know as well. But okay, well, where did you grow up? Track us with where'd you grow up, high school, college, and then how did you get, because you've been in Young Life, you said 18 years. So how did you tell us about that journey to get to, you know, us on this conversation?
yeah. I grew up in Northwest Houston, Cy-Fair School District. Um, and yeah, I lived there my whole life. Uh, grew up in the exact same house for 17 and a half years. And then we moved my senior year because our house got flooded for the second time and my parents were tired of dealing with it. I went to college at TCU. That's what brought me into the Fort Worth area and fell in love with Fort Worth. I loved being at TCU and loved the town of Fort Worth. Um, it's changed a lot over the 22 years I've been around, but in a lot of ways, it's still exactly the same. And so uh, it's way different than Houston, and I'm I'm very thankful for that.
Yeah, for sure. Don't say anything
Uh,
further. I married a Houston gal
right.
myself.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So I didn't grow up with Young Life. I grew up real involved with my church youth group and kind of the broader um, community within that. I grew up in the Methodist church, and so there's quite a connection between the churches and the youth groups and the conferences and all that kind of stuff. And so
Mhm.
I was pretty involved in all of that in high school, but they didn't have Young Life at my high school. They had it in my school district, but not at my high school. And so was really unfamiliar with Young Life. But the day before I left for college, I was at a buddy's house, and he had um, older sisters, and one of their friends was over who happened to go to TCU.
Mhm.
And she said, "Hey, you should check out Young Life when you get there." And I said, "Okay." And so I got there. I didn't go to TCU with a bunch of pals. Most of my friends went to either A&M or UT,
Mhm.
and so didn't
Thank
really
you for
know a
not
lot of.
going. Thanks for not going to either one of those schools for me.
Yeah, the
Just
uh,
kidding. I'm a Red Raider. I had to say it.
yeah, yeah. I didn't. I tried to think about. I maybe only knew a couple people who went to Tech,
Yeah,
but
it's a long way from Houston, but sorry, man. Go keep
no
going.
doubt. Yeah. So that was my kind of first introduction to even the words Young Life. And so got to TCU and went to an activities fair and saw a booth and signed up for something. I don't know what I signed up for. And went to the very first thing. Well, funny story. The first night they had something it was a Monday night. It was probably at like 9 o'clock or whatever. And at some point I realized, oh shoot, I forgot. And it was an hour after it was supposed to start. So I ran over there and I could hear a bunch of activity inside, but I just sat outside and waited until they came out. It was in a lecture hall until somebody came out and I was like, hey, is this the Young Life deal? I was late. Is it okay if I come back next week? And it was probably just a volunteer leader or
Yeah.
maybe not. I don't know who it was, but they just looked at me like I was the dumbest person in the world. And were like, yeah, that's fine. Just,
I mean, we're
I
not gonna
guess, I
kick
don't
you
know,
out.
do whatever.
Yeah.
And so the next week I showed up on time and I don't really know what it was that kept me going, to be honest. Um, I just kept going and just kept showing up and kept come to find out it was leader training. Um,
Oh my gosh. Of
and
course.
so I got trained to be a leader and then got placed that at the Christmas party at Southwest High School and with two other freshmen at TCU. And there was a little team of folks, and we started going to the school and connecting with kids. And I took kids to camp for the first time that summer, which that gave me a whole new vision of what was going on and what we were doing.
What camp was
Um,
it?
it
What
was
was the
Sharp
first camp?
Top,
Okay, is that in Georgia?
Sharp Top
Okay.
Cove in Jasper, Georgia.
Oh man. And you were
Um,
like, this is for real. Like,
yeah, it was so different. I was looking back, I was a terrible leader at camp just because I was really, I was more like a camper than a leader. You might hear my
mm,
dogs bark in the background.
that's
Sorry.
okay. No, not a big deal.
Uh, um, yeah. So that next fall was really kind of an inflection point for me in Young Life. I I started getting to know some kids at Southwest High School, and I met this crew of freshman boys. There were four of them, and it really started a really rich relationship over the next 4 years of walking with them and talking to them about Jesus and following him. And it's really we'll talk also about all sorts of things I imagine today, but one of the things I've always loved is the emphasis on relationship,
Hmm.
authentic relationship between people, and that being the avenue with which we communicate the truths about Jesus and those relationships that started in the fall of 2003 with some freshman guys and myself at 19. It's
Hmm.
not like I was that old. um, Still continue today. I had
That's
lunch with
amazing,
one of
man.
them on Tuesday, and um, a couple of them, or three of the four have been Young Life leaders in the past. Two of them still are right now, and um, it was really, really
Hmm.
rich. And so that those relationships really seeing fruit there and getting a ton of joy from the work of Young Life through those relationships really
Hmm.
was huge in me wanting to come on staff. And so I came on student staff my junior year of college, part-time staff. And then when I graduated, I came right on Young Life staff, um, serving at Southwest High School and Southwest Christian at the time also. And
Oh, okay.
uh, and then uh, and then in 2009, I became the area director for Grapevine Colleyville Young Life,
Mm.
and we were at the time there was nothing going on, and so we were uh, alongside a committee getting things restarted there. And so I got to be the area director there for 10 years. And that was really rich.
And that means, as far as people who may not know that term, essentially the lead who put new life and got the whole club and the ministry going in Grapevine. I mean, you're just
Yeah.
kind of the person on the ground and in charge of it.
Yep.
Okay.
The person who's recruiting all the volunteers, training them, and also leading the direction, the vision, where we're headed, all the fundraising efforts, leading all the camp trips, um, cleaning the toilets, doing everything.
Yeah, oh, for sure.
Uh,
And for 10 years.
yeah,
And
yeah, that was a gift. And so, um, got to do that for 10 years and then hand it off to the next area director who's great. And now I get to serve in a different capacity, to serve area directors so that they can do all that stuff. And I still
man,
get to clean toilets.
it's almost like the Lord had your path immediately. He just plopped you in there from freshman, almost day one, huh?
Hey, y'all. I just want to make an observation. When I see someone going through a legal situation, it seems like there are way too many unknowns. Well, the Allen firm provides legal guidance so that you can make a great decision, come to a resolution, and be at peace. For more information about the Allen firm, visit allenlawfirm.com.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of providence to think about and how that all worked out.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that I would have checked out Young Life. Without Young Life, I probably would not have stayed at TCU.
Mm-hmm.
Young Life was the place where I really got to see people walk with Jesus, my peers, my other leaders, got to see people walk with Jesus daily. That
Mm-hmm.
wasn't something I really observed ever before that, at least not in the same way.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, it was so much fun. It was so adventurous. It was so much of what I was looking for as a college kid, as a young
Mm-hmm.
believer. I was looking for something that was bigger than me and something that was full speed,
Yeah.
and um, and it it's been a gift to be a part of it. Not
That's
always easy,
amazing.
but certainly a gift.
Yeah, for sure. And now you have been for a while a husband. You got some kiddos. Tell us about uh your bride and where you guys met and how many kiddos you guys have and ages, and let's make sure everybody knows we're all on the same life stage here.
Yeah. Yeah, my wife and we have been married for 14 years. Um, her name is Jess, and we met at TCU, really more
Okay.
through Young Life, but she also is a Horned Frog, and she was real involved with Young Life in high school. She went to the Woodlands High School just
Mhm.
north of Houston,
As did my
and
wife.
yes,
Yep.
Highlanders.
Yep.
Um, but she, she was impacted greatly by a Young Life leader who moved into her neighborhood. They shared a back fence. My wife would hop the fence to go to campaigners, and campaigners is Young Life's word for small group Bible study. And so they would do that once a week throughout high school, and so Young Life, just different than me. She came to TCU expecting to get involved, knowing that
Mhm.
that was going to be a big deal. In fact, she reached out to the area director, the leadership in Fort Worth at the time, before she even got there, saying, "Hey, I'm coming." And
Yeah.
uh, and so yeah, Jess, she's not a young life leader right now, but she has been really until, you know, I guess 22, 21, 22, um, when her last class of girls graduated. But she's the best young life leader I know. She's
Yeah.
great.
That's awesome.
Loves girls well, pursues girls well, um, and and yeah, really fun to do young life together. Uh, we have three boys. I've got a 9-year-old named Wyatt. I've got a 6-year-old named Marshall and a 2-year-old named Triff. So I've
That's
got,
awesome, man.
yeah, the way I describe our life right now is full. Life
Yeah.
is full. So
Full of blessings. You
yeah,
know, when I'm sure you guys get this, we've laughed about this, I think, me and you before, but you walk into like a store or something and you have the boys with you, they're like, "Oh my goodness, you're so full or so busy, you're so busy or whatever,
yeah,
and that's always after a while it's kind of aggravated because it's always been in a little bit of a negative way.
oh yeah,
We're like, yeah, it is full of blessings. But yeah,
yeah,
so I'm with you on it's full, but it's a super blessed season. And yeah, sounds like you get to do a lot of leading young lives as well. So,
yeah, absolutely.
well, that's awesome.
But
Um, well, let's get into a little bit of the you know, what is young life? And I want to know too, and I want to eventually end up with I like my story is I didn't grow up, I had no clue about it. Our mutual buddy Chance fired it up when I graduated here in town for some years. So I never even heard about it, but my wife grew up in the Woodlands. It impacted her relationship with Jesus big time and was a leader in Lubbock. So, but a lot of us have not heard of what even that is. But I also want to keep in mind, I want to know kind of what's the secret of it? Because I've even seen it here, like not knowing it, not, I'm thinking, why does this work?
mm,
What's the secret? So I want, and any youth ministers who may be listening, while whatever, I want to learn personally from you on just like how does this work? Because this has been around a long time. So as you start explaining, like, what is Young Life? Like, what the heck is it? And then just keep in mind, I want to answer that question, like how is it around for 80, 90 years and it works so well? Because we can all learn from that. So start us there, and we'll have a lot of little, detailed questions I want to ask, but start us there. What is it, and what's the secret sauce to this
yeah,
organization?
what is it? Our mission statement says that uh, we exist to introduce adolescents to Jesus Christ and help them grow in their faith.
Mhm.
Uh, so what it is, it's a um, outreach ministry that works with teenagers starting in middle school, but they use the word adolescents rather than teenagers because we go all the way through college. Um, and we, we use three basic things: relationships, fun, and adventure, um, to do just that, to introduce people within that age population to Jesus.
Mhm.
Um, we hope to reach kids um, who are spiritually disinterested for whatever reason, um, whether that's because of ignorance, they have grown up in such a way that they've just never heard about Jesus, or whether that's outright, uh, you know, uh, angry disinterest,
Mhm.
right? Somebody who wants to argue about um, Jesus, his existence, his importance, whatever. And everybody within that, right? That's quite a range. Um, there's plenty of adolescents these days who just plain don't care. And so apathetic. But we have no intention to just create another youth group that of kids who already believe and are working out their faith and figuring out how to follow Jesus with their own legs. Churches and youth groups, especially around where we are doing a really great job of that.
Yeah, us too.
So we want kids to stay connected there, be connected there, and our hope is to reach kids who would never step into the doors of a church for whatever reason. And that's often a place for kids who are following Jesus, to bring kids bring their friends, their classmates, their neighbors, their peers who otherwise wouldn't go to church with them. And Young Life can be a great place for those kids to. It's a great tool for those kids to use. But how we do that, so relationships, fun, and adventure. Relationships, we have teams of adult volunteer leaders who are equipped and trained to build relationships with adolescents. We have a phrase that we say all the time, that we want to earn the right to be heard. And what we mean by that is that we don't just walk into a room and say, hey, I'm the old person in the room. I've got all the information. And because I have this faith in Jesus, you need to listen to me. I'm going to tell you the truth. We really think that, there's that old saying, people don't care what you know until they know how much you care, right? It's very cheesy. It feels like it should be on a throw pillow or something. But it's true that people, not just kids, people in general care a whole lot more about what you have to say if they really know you, if they know what you're about, they understand why the story you just told is funny. They've been around you, they've shared a meal with you, if they've
Unstuck Coaches hates it when movement and progress in a person's life or business is stuck, or frozen, or slowed, or just stopped altogether. Well, we have found a solution. Unstuckcoaches.com. They offer a variety of coaching services to get you or your business moving again. Check out Unstuckcoaches.com.
Yeah, the term that comes to my mind all the time from, I don't know what book it's from, the relationship capital. If you have some relationship capital with the person,
absolutely,
a lot of deposits.
Yeah. And almost everybody can relate to that, understand that, because most of us experience life on both sides of that, right? Somebody investing into us and us investing into other people. So relationships are key. That really, we can talk about it more in a minute, but that's the secret sauce.
Let's keep diving in, go one step. So me as a volunteer adult leader, or some younger folks, around us, some Tarleton kids, Tarleton State University, or wherever you're at, listen to it, and they want to be involved in this mission, and they want to develop relationships. How do you even start? Where does that even start? How do you guys give us some? What do you do? How do I get to know one of these people?
I think that take it outside of the Young Life context. If you want to build a relationship with somebody, it starts with risk. You got to talk to somebody, and And even before you talk to somebody, you have to, this may sound ridiculous, you have to go somewhere where somebody is,
Yeah,
right?
for real.
Um, as silly as that might sound, you physically have to go be around
Yeah.
people to get to build relationships with
Hmm.
people. Um,
No, I'm glad you said that. That's not silly at all. It's just true and maybe like actually something we need to be reminded of a little bit
yeah,
in today's
yeah,
age.
yeah. It's easy to just hunker down and live in a small context.
Mhm.
But I was, you know, I think a easy way to think about how you might start a relationship with somebody who you don't have a context with is go become a regular somewhere.
Mhm.
Um, if you go to there's a little bagel shop in town called Yogi's. And if I wanted to get to know the people at Yogi's, I would go become who worked at Yogi's. I would go become a regular at Yogi's.
Mhm.
And the first time I walk in, I'm gonna be I'm gonna be trying to make sense of who's who, and
Mhm.
I'm gonna hope they have name tags. But if they don't, I'm gonna have to say, "Hey, what's your name?"
Mhm.
You know, and I'm gonna order my food, and I'm gonna talk to whoever I can talk to, and sit down and eat it. And then the next time I go, I'm gonna try to call those people by name,
Mhm.
and um, and I'm gonna order my food, and I'll probably order the same thing, um, especially if I'm trying to become a regular.
Mhm.
And some amount of time will pass, and then I'll walk in, and I won't have to tell them my order,
They'll be like, "Hey
right?
Jay, do you want the usual?" Yep.
Yeah, right. It's Cheers, where everybody knows your name,
Yeah.
dated reference, uh, but it's you know that thought of becoming a regular somewhere kind
Mhm.
of can help it make some sense, right? That um, if so much of building relationships is just regular proximity and intentionality. If I'm around people often, and when I'm around them, I'm intentional. I call them by name. I talk to them. I remember things about them. I ask them questions about themselves. I have some purpose, direction of where I'm headed with them. It just takes time, and there's nothing really that uh, can be a substitute for that. I have a friend
And
who
you
just
have
sent me.
seen, go ahead.
I
No,
was
go
going
ahead.
to say I have a friend who sent me an article recently about from Kansas, the University of Kansas, and they kind of quantified how long it takes to build
Mhm.
relationships. And so it said something like it takes 50 hours to become a casual friend, 90 hours to become a real friend, and 200 hours to become a close friend. And
Mhm.
there's just no substitute
Yeah. There's no fast
for
tracking that.
those time. And so
And have
relationships
you
take time.
you have seen that type of become the regular mentality work to create relationships with adolescents all the time?
Yeah, that's, you know,
I mean, it's not just
I,
for adults.
right. Yeah, that's
Mm.
for, I think that's just generally people,
Yeah.
but, and adolescents are people. Um, and, I tell them that's talking about those folks, those kids I met in 2003. I mean, just showed up regularly in their world. So a
Mhm.
couple times a week, and I did all those things, called them by name, um, uh, asked them questions about themselves, got to remembered their answers, right?
Mhm.
And so every time we talked, we were building upon
Mhm.
the previous hours, right? Rather than starting over each time. And there's a lot of relationship building that people do naturally.
Mhm.
And so when you become a young life leader and you have to go to go to a place where you don't fit in, and you are an outsider of sorts. The
Like the high
natural,
school, like the high
yeah,
school
like
when
the
you're
high,
at my age.
sure, yeah. And you've got to do things more intentionally rather than just reactionary and just doing what you've always done. And so, uh, but you know, having people think backward uh, in their life to before they were good friends with somebody, it's hard. It's hard to remember um, starting a friendship from scratch.
Mhm.
Um, that's true of all of us. So,
But that's what you're doing on purpose in this
yeah,
ministry. Yeah.
absolutely. And truly, I
And
think that's what we ought to be doing, whether in Young Life or
yeah,
otherwise, right? Like
yeah,
that's just the
yeah.
call
Well,
of following Jesus.
well, it's cool. One of a guy I really respect and love. He said one time, I think we've talked about this, like learn your waiter's name
Hmm.
because at that point they become a person. Otherwise they're just a waiter and you don't even see them. But then when it's like, hey, thanks, AJ, for the food, then
Hmm.
they're a person. And that as simple as that is, that has been revolutionary. Just learning their name, you actually see them. To me, that's
Yeah,
just awesome. And it doesn't
I
matter if you're
love
an
places.
adolescent or not.
Yeah, I love places that put name tags on their employees,
Mm,
and that's just an open invitation to call people by name.
mm,
Whenever I was trained to do Young Life, I was told the sweetest thing to a person's ears is their first name.
yeah,
And I don't know if you can qualify that statement,
yeah,
but I do know that it means a whole lot whenever somebody calls me
100%.
by name, you know?
Especially if you remember it the next time you see them. Yeah, that's
Absolutely.
just fun. So when you organize and kind of train the leaders with the mission of you know, outreach ministry toward adolescents, introduce them to Jesus, and the vehicle through that is with relationships and relationship development. Um, you use a term a lot in Young Love called contact work, and you guys are super intentional about you got to get out, you got to be the regular, you got to go meet, you got to develop relationships. Um, and that alone, you're saying is just maybe the secret. I mean, one of the biggest deals there is.
Yeah, in my opinion, that is the secret sauce.
Oh, okay.
Um, there's, you know, that's been the most consistent piece
Mm,
of the mission for over 80 years is
yeah.
relationships. Uh, and we have club. Club is our
Okay.
weekly gathering of kids. It in some places it includes songs, in some places it includes games and mixers where everybody plays a big group game, and some places it includes dinner and a craft or a pickup game of basketball. There is no necessary magic in or secret sauce in how you put together a club. Um, but club becomes it embodies the secret sauce when the people who are there are in relationship.
Yeah. There it
Um,
is again.
and and I you know I believe in a club that has 4 to 6 songs and a couple
Mm,
mixers and a
mm,
game and all that, and then a leader stands up and gives a talk at the end of it.
mm,
But it's a leader who's been doing contact work, a leader who has relationships, who's
mm,
known. They may not be the best speaker. They may not be
mm,
the smartest
mm,
biblical scholar.
mm,
Uh, they may not be comfortable even up front in front of kids, but um, they're the one to do it because they have relationships,
mm,
because they know people and they've earned the right to be heard.
mm,
We don't have guest speakers at
mm.
club throughout the school year because philosophically it doesn't fit with what we're doing.
Yeah, it's kind of like unsolicited advice from a guest speaker. Like you have no
yeah,
credit.
sure.
Yeah.
Um, and and we we just know that again, kids listen at the end of club because they know you, uh, not because you're a good speaker, and um, and that's critical. And that is, um, yeah, that's philosophically
That
really important, right? Um, and so club club's great, but club has
and
changed a ton over the course of 80 years.
but for clarification, club is not a church service.
It is not. No.
Okay. I want to make sure to get that to just a conversation with us because I think there may be some confusion occasionally with, especially when you're like us kind of getting a new place going, like Young Life is not a church, in that context, and they're not replacing a youth group. If anything, we're hoping to um get kids into a youth group at a local church.
Yeah, we are hoping that kids would kids who have said yes to following Jesus would find a home in a local church.
Nice. Yeah.
Uh, and that shows up in all sorts of ways, right? Sometimes that is getting involved in the youth group. Sometimes that's going with the adult leader to church
Mhm.
on Sunday mornings,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
um, I would say, or the way I'd say it is, we're in the long game with
Mhm.
kids,
Mhm.
right? And so the long game, I, for me, I'm okay if a kid comes to church with me and doesn't want to go to youth group, because
Yeah.
the long game is that that kid would be a part of the body of Christ.
Hmm.
That's way bigger than Young Life, way bigger than
Hmm.
youth group, way bigger than that
Yeah.
one specific local church.
Or that
And
moment. Yeah.
yeah, and yeah, or that moment, and that a lot of what we're doing is practicing being a part of the body of Christ,
Yeah.
and so um, yeah, it's the long game is okay with the a kid who hasn't ever been to church. They may
Hmm.
not feel comfortable at youth group. They
Hmm.
may just feel comfortable side by side with you, fumbling through, a
Yeah.
worship song on Sunday
Yeah.
morning. But the hope
Yeah.
is that in 20 years they're going to be with their family or their neighbors or their
Hmm.
friends at a local church on a Sunday morning,
Yeah.
uh, and that's been consistent and growing in them.
That,
But no, we club is not a church service. There may be things that look familiar. We're going to sing some songs most likely.
mhm.
That that may look real familiar. The difference will be uh, the songs we sing.
Mhm.
We'll sing a lot of songs that uh, are straight from the radio, if that's even
Mhm.
a thing anymore.
Yeah. What are you talking
Sp-
about? I mean,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But yeah, we'll sing songs that kids recognize, kids are
Yeah.
familiar with, that are fun to sing.
Mhm.
Um, songs that are oldies that are fun to sing. Um, and we'll play games that invite everybody to participate. You know, Gen Z gets all sorts of bad press, but
Mhm.
they're just kids. They still
Yeah.
like to be silly. They still like to laugh. They still like to,
Yeah.
um, you know, be kids. And
Hmm.
so there's parts of club that just invite kids to be kids, give them an
Hmm.
opportunity to, you know, press pause on a whatever's
Hmm.
going on outside of that hour, and yeah, slowly but surely, relax over the course of an hour to where when the leader gets up to talk about Jesus from the Gospels, um, they might have pressed pause on the all the noise behind them so that they
Hmm.
can listen.
And that's that fun element too. It seems like, I mean, that relationships and fun and adventure, but clubs are fun.
Clubs are fun.
Just fun.
They should be fun. And
Yeah.
we
A little
young
dangerous, I
life
feel like.
leaders.
I've seen some of the group games in some other places. I'm like, man, I don't know if my old bones can handle that type of stuff. It looks awesome.
It's fun. It should be fun. We
Yeah.
should leave club laughing.
Yeah.
I mean, that we can't compete with the we can't compete with culture from a entertainment perspective.
Yeah.
Like it's just impossible. We don't have the funds to do so. We don't have the
Yeah.
technology to do so. And that's where I'd say just a reminder that the relationship is the secret sauce.
Yeah.
Because no matter how great the entertainment is,
Mhm.
if I don't get to share it with anybody, I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
It doesn't really last. But I also know that um, I there's been some really lo-fi entertainment that I've really enjoyed because of the people I've been with. You
100%.
know, uh, and I think about my kids. My kids have made up a game called Hit Ball, and the rules are in a constant state of evolution. But
Yeah.
uh, they would play that every day if they could. And there's nothing special about Hit Ball.
We had see
It's a
we had sock ball,
yeah,
when I go home from work. It was basically dodgeball with my socks. I mean,
yeah.
yeah.
And they but they love it because of the people, not because the game is
Yeah,
so
100%.
advanced. And it's not a video game, and it's like there's
Ball.
way better entertainment out there.
Yeah.
But they love Hit Ball because of the pals they get to play it with.
Oh my gosh, that's
Uh,
good.
so
So the contact work, the relationships, the club, the fun, the gathering based on the relationships, and it's kind of the next step. And then you guys have some really amazing camps all over. Talk about camps for a minute and how that fits into kind of the relationship journey, even or and the spiritual journey for the kids we're trying to reach.
yeah, yeah, camp is another big part of our vision. Adventure. I said that earlier, relationships, fun, and adventure's key. Um, we Young Life owns and operates camps all over the country, in fact, all over the world, and they're great. They're incredible. They're in incredibly beautiful places,
Hmm.
and typically you know the buildings and the food and the where you're sleeping, all that is pretty great too.
Hmm.
It's not like the camp I grew up going to,
Yeah.
right?
Like the food is just
Um,
like, ugh.
yeah, yeah, where
It's just
everything was light tan, you
yeah.
know.
Well, I actually
Uh,
heard that from the few people we sent to this recent camp, they were like, the
yeah,
food was delicious. Like,
yeah,
praise Jesus for that.
no kidding. Um, yeah, so I mean, at its core, getting anybody away from their normal life, um,
Mm,
to set down responsibilities, to set down stresses, to set down whatever it is, gives them at least some space to consider other things, right? And with camp, we're real intentional that we want kids to come away. We want them to experience adventure. We're going to provide some of that for them with things like a ropes course or
mhm,
a rappelling opportunity or a horseback ride or
mhm.
some sort of deal where their cabin gets to challenge another cabin or something. And if in that adventure they don't have the normal distractions of life, um, and they get intentional time to process and consider the truth of who Jesus is and who they are, um, his work on the cross, and our clear need for him. Um, there's a chance that they're going to be able to see with new eyes, hear with new ears. Um, and that's been true for forever. Long before cell phones came along, people, young life leaders took kids out of town, away from their normal distractions, to do the same thing. Um, and now, we think we're way more distracted now. I think you can make a good argument for that.
Yeah, for sure.
But those things have been true for forever.
Mm.
That getting somebody in nature and getting somebody out of their normal routine, introducing adventure and some risk, safe risk, but risk. All of those kinds of things, especially the risk and the practical faith, right, of trusting a cable when you're doing a ropes course, or those provide some little parables throughout the week to connect the dots from what they're hearing at club. We have club every night. We have cabin time every evening. And so you go to camp, and it's not one of those camps where you're just placed with random people from all over. You go and you're in a cabin with folks from your area, and with a young life leader from your area who's built a relationship, who's got,
There it is again. Yeah.
somewhere in that 50 to 200 hours. And every day you get a chance to talk about what you've heard and what you think. And at some point that week, maybe multiple points that week, a young life leader ought to look every kid in the eye one by one and say, what do you think about this for you? What do you really think about it? And I think that ultimately, when I look back on my life in high school, I wish I would have had somebody who wasn't my parents, wasn't, didn't assume anything about me, who could have earned the right to be heard and sat with me and said, hey, what do you think about Jesus? Because I would have had a ton of questions. But I didn't have places where I felt like I could ask those questions. And
camp's really a good table for that as well.
It's a great place for that. Yeah. It's a great place for that because, there's no time constraints. Nobody's got to get to work or get home to put the kids to bed or anything like that. And so, camp is great. It happens not just in the summer. It happens throughout the school year. You just referenced that Stephenville Young Life took some kids to our camp in Texas just a few weeks ago. And we're doing a ski trip over Christmas break for a whole bunch of areas all over Texas. Camp has always been a part of the mission. The first camp trips were just out to land in East Texas. And the content was, or the, program was armadillo hunting and hikes. And the content was sitting around a campfire, reading gospel stories and talking about it. And things have changed quite a bit as far as the program and the proclamation, but the heart of it, sitting around and talking about who Jesus is, that's really
and you've seen countless testimonies of kids' lives change just from their relationship kind of culminating in a camp experience.
Absolutely getting to consider the things you've heard differently, and process them in real time. That's a game changer. Camp isn't everything, we coach leaders up all the time that we don't need to wait for camp to have conversations about Jesus. Because not every kid's going to go to camp. In fact, most are not going to go to camp. But camp is a really great tool
Yeah,
to accomplish the mission.
man, that's good. Well, we probably have about 10 more minutes. I want to honoring your time as well. I really appreciate you making time, AJ. Um, talk for a minute about what you mentioned earlier called campaigners. So we talked about relationships or, contact work, reaching out, going to being a regular, meeting people on purpose, having a lot of intentionality, going where they are. Talked about club on typically Monday nights where it's just a lot of fun and group drawing the group together and they get a message from the gospel. And then camp. So what is campaigners when you hear that, when we
Um,
hear that term or somebody hears that term?
yeah, campaigners is Young Life's word for small group Bible study. And so the elements of that that are critical are that you open the Bible together and read it, that you talk about it, and that you pray. And then besides that, all sorts of ways to have campaigners.
Mhm.
Most of the high school girl campaigners groups I've ever known, they really get together and talk, and then it's a pretty easy transition into Bible study.
Yeah.
Most of the guys campaigners I've ever known, it's typically, hey, we're going to play this activity or play this game for a while, and then we're going to talk about Jesus.
Yeah.
Then we're going to open up Scripture. One of my favorite campaigners groups over the past 18 years, 20 years, we played wiffle ball uh, inside inside our club room in Grapevine. We would play wiffle ball every Wednesday night, and they broke so many things. Uh,
Bet.
but we had a blast, and so we would play wiffle ball for a while, and then we would sit down and open up Scripture and read and talk about it, and um, we'd pray, and uh, it was rich, and
Mhm.
all those guys graduated. I think summer of 21, maybe summer of 19. I can't remember. And this past summer, a lot of them were back in town. I guess they did graduate summer 21, so they were all back in town for the summer, and we got together and we went and ate dinner. And I thought we were going to go play wiffle ball, but we ended up
That would have been
just
sweet.
well, we went back to the club room where we used to play wiffle ball, and we just skipped that part. We just went straight to reading scripture and praying and talking.
Wow.
Uh, and so, there's a lot of those guys who still are disinterested in following Jesus, but they'll still have a conversation with me
Yeah.
about him and about life, uh, really anytime. And so
It's the long
there
game.
is,
Yeah.
yeah, it's the long game. And our mission has kind of two parts: introduce adolescents to Jesus and then help them grow in their faith.
Mm.
That um the Christiany words are evangelism and discipleship, and those two things aren't you can't really separate them, that
Mm.
they go hand in hand.
Mm.
And that's not to say we don't want to get them connected to a church or get them connected to uh, any other Bible study. Gosh,
Mm.
I'd love it if a kid would get connected to a church and a Bible study, and will help kind of bridge that gap. But I'm also going to take responsibility for helping them grow.
Mm.
And then, for kids who we have earned the right to be heard with, we want to have deeper conversations with them.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
so, Bible study looks different for people who are wanting to follow Jesus and have faith in him than it does for people who just trust you. And
Yeah.
you can have a Bible study with kids or with people who just trust you, even if they don't believe what you believe.
Yeah.
Uh, and it can be exploratory, and
It's
that
almost like that.
is
Have you ever heard of the belong? I mean, a lot of times they want to belong before they believe. I mean,
absolutely,
you've probably seen that,
yeah.
huh?
And we want, I mean, I want campaigners. can also be a place where kids who may not like the large group, high energy, loud feel of club, where they could find a place where they could be a part. Gosh, there's any number of reasons why a kid may not like club. Maybe it's because they have tutoring on that night, or they have to work on the night that club is, but they can make it to campaigners. How great that we have another place. Maybe a kid who, for whatever reason, isn't friends with the kids who go to club. Club's for them, not for me. We would never say that, but a kid might think that, and campaigners can be a place for them. And so it's another place where, relationship is the secret sauce that nobody's gonna be honest and open up, or even come to a place where we're open up the Bible and talking about Jesus, especially kids who don't believe in him. Without relationship, but with relationship, they'll be there. There was nothing special about wiffle ball, but that I knew those boys well, and I saw them a few times a week at their things, and I invited them, and we had a relationship. So we have a
awesome,
relationship.
man. That's so good. Okay, so wrap us up with this. For anybody who's listening in different areas who have different clubs, what do clubs, I mean, in startups too, but like Stephenville, like what do they need? Like for anyone's interested in who says, man, I may want to help in some capacity the young life in my area. Like what's some ways that they can really get involved and help the young life in your area, wherever that may be?
Yeah. That answer is going to be different everywhere. And I'd say step one, contact the staff or the folks who are leading Young Life in that area. And so a lot of places have staff, but in Stephenville, if you're in Stephenville listening to this, contact Josh. And start a conversation. I think that, Young Life has always depended on volunteers. And we have staff, but we don't have gigantic staff.
Well, yeah, it's kind of like the pastor deal. Like, pastor can't minister to everybody.
Yeah,
he needs volunteers.
Absolutely. And
but
so,
if you're kind of a career age person or a retired person, can they still volunteer? Is there still a spot for that? Because I know that may be a lie they believe.
Absolutely, there's a spot. There's a video that Young Life made a handful of years ago. It's got a line I love. It's a promotional video for Young Life, and towards the end of it, the speaker on the video says, "Do you love kids? Do you love Jesus? Then I can teach you the rest." And really, that's it. You do. Primary, do you love Jesus? Do you have a growing relationship with him? And do you want people to know him? Great. Check. And then it does matter that you love kids.
Yeah.
Right?
For sure.
Because if you or that you care that this population of people comes to know him. If you don't like teenagers, that's okay. Young Life just probably isn't the spot for you.
Yeah.
Let me help you find another spot.
Yeah, for sure.
But that's really, I mean, the heart of it is critical, because the other stuff I can teach you methods and strategy, and I can help you figure out how to be fun and how to be yourself and all that kind of stuff. But do you care that people have a clear picture of themselves and of Jesus? And then do you like this population of people.
Mhm. Yeah.
And
So
besides
leaders is a
that,
big deal. Yeah, leaders.
leaders, that's a great way to get involved. Committee is the group of people in a community who are behind the scenes, who help promote Young Life, who help by praying for
Mhm.
Young Life consistently. They help short-term and long-term vision
Mhm.
of a community, of Young Life in a community. They care for leaders.
Mhm.
They help fundraise
Mhm.
and help fund the ministry, and so that's um, there's roles on committee that are kind of big picture, long term, and there's roles on committee that are picking up napkins for the
Mhm.
leader meeting. You know,
Yeah.
but there, I always say this, that if what I want people to do is go meet the staff or the folks leading Young Life in your area. Say, hey, I'd love to serve, and this is what I have to offer, whether that's
Yeah.
time or money or talent, whatever. And then and then have a conversation with that person about how to make the most of that,
Yeah.
being involved with Young Life.
That's good.
Um,
So if they're in an area that they may not know the staff person, how do you find if there's a club in your area and who that person may be? For Stephenville,
yeah,
yes, please give me a ring, shoot me an email, get a hold of us. And but what about just for somewhere out West Texas or somebody who's like, I don't know, but I'd love to
yeah.
help. Where can we go website wise or contact wise?
You can go to younglife.org,
Okay.
and there's a button right there in the middle of that page that says "Find Young Life near me." Click on that and type in your zip code, and that's going to give your nearest Young Life area. Um, if you're in a town that has a Young Life area, then easy,
Yeah.
call or email that office, and they'll get back to you. Um, and if it's one that's a little further away, uh, pick send an email to all of them and
Yeah.
say, "Hey, I'm interested in this," and it may take a few messages or a few from
Yeah.
this person saying, "Hey, you need to talk to this person," and the next person saying, "Oh, actually, you need to talk to this person." But we'll get you to somebody who can talk about getting Young Life going.
Yeah. And maybe AJ, we can add a few more few more areas on you. That'd be awesome.
Come
But
on,
just be
why
patient with
not?
us because we've been wearing AJ out. We keep picking on him in Stephenville we've been kind of a high maintenance group. So, man, I appreciate your patience with us, but it's been super helpful your direction on everything. So, um,
Yeah, happy.
okay. Well, man, I think we should land the plane there. So anybody who wants to help, go to youngloft.org, find the location nearest to you or some that are close, shoot an email, call me for Stephenville or AJ or anybody, and eventually you'll land in the right spot, and it's worth the time and adventure because the mission we exist, to introduce adolescents to Jesus. And that's the whole point, to introduce them and then help them grow in their faith. So it's a super worthy cause. It's a great time it's a great time you know, in really kind of history there's always a good time to introduce adolescents to Jesus, but it's really a sweet opportunity right now as well that we're finding just as we engage here in our town. So, AJ, man, number one podcast you did was awesome. Thank you for your story. Thank you for all you guys are doing. We're super blessed and look forward to continuing our relationship and watching this thing grow.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
You bet. Talk soon.
Thank you for joining us on this latest edition to the StoryField podcast. We hope that you have been challenged, inspired, and ready to take that next step, whatever that is. If you know someone with an amazing story that needs to be heard, send us an email at info@thestoryfield.com. Have a fantastic day, and we can't wait for you to join us on the next episode of The StoryField.